some schools of Buddhism, Sarvastivadins and the Theravadins, use that more provisional cause and effect approach. But the approach that's being given here is one of trusting your insight. And how do you trust your insight? Is you first stop pushing, which is grasping, pulling, which is grasping, ignoring, which is a form of grasping. You stop doing all of that. This is not to say that we don't see how certain stories suck us into a grasp or grasping belief. Certain stories are saying, well, you can't mean this. This person did take something from that person there that's stealing. Or this person did do something to me, another person, and so I have some resentment here. So the way I like to say this is, it's not that those stories don't have some validity, but if you trace, reify, substantiate, validate, and build your structure under that belief or that perception that something actually occurred to you. And of course it did. I mean, something happened. It's happening to everybody. This is happening. That happens. But from the point of view of these teachings, none of that happens. None of that happens. And if you look for the logic that is in samsara, or in cause and effect, or in parikalpita, the imaginary nature, then you're just buying into duality. You're buying into the cause and effect situation, which there's something to that. But to see fundamentally what it is and transcend cause and effect, transcend plus and minus, oneself and others, atma and dharmas, to actually see the true nature of that is to see right through, to see through it. So, and the way we do that is we hold still and we watch the tendency to believe. We watch the tendency to believe. We watch the tendency to believe until it starts to wear out. Because if you don't feed that fire, it will go out. It will go out. When it goes out, boom, everything's gone. And boom, everything comes back. And it comes back without a self. And there's no longer any suffering. I'm not saying there's not pain, but it doesn't point to anything. It doesn't build a self who's in pain. It's just pain. It's just love. It's just jealousy. It's just what it is, simply. It's allowed to rise and fall like all the 10,000 things in the three worlds. And that's why we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So to give us some kind of a structure, a raft, so that we can go to the other shore of nirvana, which is the same as samsara. Why? Not two. One taste, non-duality. This can't be done. And therefore, it can be done. Sounds kind of zen-y, doesn't it? Parinispana, imaginary nature. Paratantra, other dependent nature. Actually, the dependently arisen nature that's all around us. The walls, the lights. One thing dependent on something else. Paratantra. And Parinishpana, or the perfectly accomplished, or the absolute fundamental nature of reality, which you are not separate from. Any questions? You could ask, well, how, okay, that's interesting. How can I use that to serve my awakening, to help me see what is really true? How can I really bring suffering to an end for myself and all sentient beings, limitless as space.
Yes, how can we?
You can't. It's already been done. All you have to do is see it. Just see it. And the way we see that is we just keep looking. We keep observing. We keep looking at this tendency to believe. Looking at this tendency to separate, evaluate. Grasper and grasping. Grasp, push away. That tendency to want and desire. We're constantly doing that. So how do we work with that? From this perspective here, I'm not making anyone else wrong, any other teaching or teacher. They can do whatever they want. But look who's here. So it seems the only way it can be done is don't do anything except practice, sit, look, and do a lot of it. Check in with me every now and then. Or someone like me. Question? You were talking about trust earlier today. Talking about trust. That's where we begin to see trust isn't believing in your thought patterns, your ideas, your opinions. But actual trust is scary. And it's scary or creates fear, you might say, because we realize we are going to have to give up all of our reference points. We aren't going to be able to take our opinions, ideas, and so on through that narrow passageway. Trust, where you just see it and you go there. No particular reference point. If you have reference points, that's not trust. That's opinions and belief. Evaluations, judgments, maps, recipes, concepts.
And is that all for the reinforcement of ego then?
Reinforcement of separation. Ego wants to attain enlightenment. So therefore ego is very happy to have lots of rules and laws and ways to point to things. When somebody gets close to something where someone might, it's a combination of two things. It looks like that's too far out there, I'm not going to do that. Or that teacher, he or she is, they're not close enough to the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 12 Links. They're not close enough to the provisional teachings. So they don't want to go out there and kind of step off into space. And the teachings of Buddhism is one of the images is stepping off from a 100-foot pole. It's like you're 100 feet up in the air and you're a pole. You step right off into it. It's called trust. If you trust, you have no idea what's going to happen next, and you don't care. Not dismissively. It's like, I don't care. That's more about ego. But it's like there's an innocence about it where you actually, in a, you might say, a humorous kind of way, are willing to have anything show up.
Including death.
Yes. In fact, that's the main idea. That's the big boogeyman right there. We want to come to an end. What doesn't want to come to an end?
When you talk about trust what?
Trust yourself. Trust yourself that you don't have to figure everything out, come up with a bunch of ideas ahead of time. That you can actually live moment by moment in this moment. If you live in anything else, you're living in parakalpita, the imaginary nature, and you will suffer right up until your death. I'm not a prophet. I could be wrong, but that's the way it looks. Some people suffer more than others, depending on their